Hi guys, welcome back to the training series, and this week's video is about mantling. It's a really important skill to try and practice in the gym, especially for those that are looking to get outside. So I'm going to run over some of the basic cues that you should be doing when mantling or looking to mantle, and just some little things to think about as you're practicing this skill in the gym. So Hendrik's going to mantle up on this orange one, and as you can see, he's put his right heel up high. Now the reason that he's put his heel there is to allow him to shift as much of his body weight as possible onto the right-hand side. Mantling is a lot to do with center of weight and center of gravity and how you distribute that weight over the holds that you have available. So he puts his heel up, he's flexible enough in his hip, and he starts shifting as much of his body weight as possible onto the right-hand side. This essentially allows him to free up his hands to be able to move them into a position that's more optimal for the next part of the mantle, which is the press. So as you can see here, by shifting his weight, he's managed to rotate his right hand into a position that allows him to press upwards with his tricep. Now, this is really, really important because you don't want to be just trying to fling yourself over the top of the wall. You want to be using major muscle groups as much as possible and press yourself over to a position that you can get your left foot in this case, up onto a hold or onto the wall and just kind of get yourself over. Now, one last really important thing to be looking for is your hip flexibility and your hip position. So from this angle, we get a clearer demonstration. Hendrik's quite flexible in his hips. So in this position here, he's managed to keep his hips open as much as possible, and he's keeping his hips close to the wall. The same principle applies to mantling as it does to climbing. That's essentially keeping as much of your center of gravity and center of mass close to the wall as possible. But in mantling, in this case, by keeping his hips closed, it allows him to shift as much of his body weight over the top of the wall as possible, and it makes it a little bit easier for him to move his hands and shift his arms to get into a prime position to kind of press through the move. Now, some mantles are just jugs, which you don't really have to think about this too much, but if you're climbing in font, for example, these are really, really common moves that you should be practicing. Now, this is an example of what happens when you fail to get your center of gravity onto your foot. As you can see, I am literally just flailing around here as I'm struggling to get more and more of my weight over to the right, and the main issue is that I didn't use my heel. I've put my toe on this hold instead of my heel, and it basically means that my right hip is pushing me back across left into my hands, which means that I can't free my right hand to press up. Now, eventually I managed to muscle my way up through some desperate attempt of a lock off and slapping about, but I could have made that so much easier for myself if I just followed my own advice. If you have any questions about this technique or exercises that you're looking for in order to kind of perfect it, then please don't hesitate to drop a comment down below. But apart from that, I hope you guys have a great training session, and I'll see you guys in the next video.